Good morning, everyone. My name is Juliet Rudder. I am the Community Engagement and Outreach Coordinator for the Healthcare Coalition of Southern Oregon. And this conversation is going to be about infant toddler mental health with Sara. Sara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name's Sara Eberly. I work for Options for Southern Oregon, which is county mental health in Jackson and Josephine counties. And I am one of the people that that focuses on infant toddler mental health. So I do mental health assessments and treatments for kiddos 5 and under. Mostly I see probably 2 and 3-year-olds.
Very, very cool. So I think that the first thing that we need to talk about is what is infant toddler mental health? I feel like aren't kiddos too young to have mental health at that point?
Yes and no. So the way that I explain it is that I'm serving 3 clients. So there's not necessarily like, you bring your kid in with the identified patient terminology, and really some of the things that I'm looking at is I'm looking at the mental health of the child, I'm looking at the mental health of the caregiver, and I'm looking at their relationship. And so I think some of the things, like the kind of like easiest things to like identify are like if a kid has medical issues and so they're really hard to soothe, or they had to be in the NICU, and so they had a really rough start, and then you put like maybe postpartum depression on it, or mom's just scared that the baby's gonna break, because I remember kind of feeling like that even as a new mom, of like, oh gosh. And so you have those pieces that, like, if a baby is really hard to soothe and you've got a really tentative mom, there can be problems. There's not very good attunement. And so there's that infant toddler mental health right there, is working on helping them attune better, so that there's a better match and that baby's getting the needs met and mom can read the cues more clearly.
Very cool. So you said attune a couple of times in there. Like what do you mean by that? What is
Um,
attuning?
Really, it's having that caregiver be able, because I say caregiver because it's grandma watching the baby while mom's at work, and it's mom coming home after a tired day, and we see a lot of kids in foster care. So there, I try to use the word caregiver, but I use mom, I use dad. I mean, it's a lot of different people. I think that attunement is being able to have that caregiver match the baby. So if that baby is like settling down for sleep and looking away, you're not going to be bouncing them and talking in a really loud voice. You're going to be able to read those cues and go, oh, this baby's settling down, and I'm going to talk in a quiet voice. Or if if that baby's staring at you and like starting to make those squeals, you're not putting that baby down. You're making faces, you're raising your eyebrows, you're talking in your sing-song voice, and you're matching that baby, so that baby is like, hey, yeah, I did do this right, I got this interaction, and look what I'm getting now, because we're social creatures.
Very cool. I love the talking in sing-song voice. I know immediately what you meant by that. Very, very cool. So we talked a little bit just now about attunement. Is there more to having like good infant toddler mental health? Like, what does that look like? What is good infant toddler mental health?
I think it is having that baby get its needs met. I mean, we all are scared that we're going to get those especially cranky babies, and some of us do. But you also find things that are gonna soothe that baby, like the swing, or one of the things that I listen for is when parents can tell me how the baby likes to be held, or how that baby goes to sleep, because that means that that parent really knows what that, what that baby likes. I think that good infant mental health is that caregiver knowing that baby.
Very, very cool. So on the other side of that coin, how do you know if your infant or toddler is having a mental health challenge?
I think that a lot of times it's the caregiver feeling frustrated more than the baby. Sometimes there's medical issues that come into play and create difficulties, and so it's really hard to soothe that baby, and that parent needs some help, finding those different positions, or being able to soothe themselves so they can soothe the baby, because one of the things is those babies pick up on, like, when we're anxious, um, and so if we have an anxious parent and then we have an anxious baby, they're just playing on each other, and it's hard for them to both feel comfortable. I think it's that stress of both of them that a lot of times I see. And a lot of times it's not so much an infant, it's that toddler when they start to get that sense of self, and they're starting to explore their world more, and they're like, hey, I can be in charge of this world a little bit. I think a lot of times that's a big piece of where I see. One of the other things that I was going to mention is like a mismatch in temperament. So, like, if you have a really extroverted kiddo that is loud and moves a lot and wants to go up to everybody, and you've got this introverted mom who gets really nervous when they're out in public, and then that kid's just running everywhere. Those are some really hard moments, and they happen over and over and over again in a day.
So, I mean, like, what do you do about that?
Um, awareness, awareness and creativity, let's say that. The mom should be thinking, okay, how can I kind of keep my world small but get the kid the socialization that they need? So parks, or like library groups. Okay, and so here's the other piece is, COVID has put a whole nother spin on this this piece of parenting, and so I always kind of like, I'm like, here's my pre-COVID talk of like the ideas that I would have, and now let's stretch and figure some things out. There is that piece that our worlds have changed a lot over the past 18 months. It seems like one of the things that I'm seeing is that some of those kids that have grown up in a really, really closed world, like they're just starting to like have those memories and reach out and like explore their world. It's really overwhelming to go in bigger places because their world was so teeny tiny for so long, and now that it's opening up, it's big.
That makes a lot of sense. I just imagined like being a toddler or being like this small um person, and then all of a sudden like you open up a door and it's like going into the Red Queen's garden when you're Alice or something like that, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just kind of this surreal sort of situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so there's that opposite of, you've got a really extroverted parent and they're like, okay, we're going everywhere now. And then you've got this introverted kiddo who hasn't had a lot of experience and just wants to cling. And the mom's like, shoo, go explore. And they're like, I don't want to. And then you get those tantrums.
Very, very insightful. I love that. Well, we did just mention tantrums and whatnot, and that being like a way that they communicate. How do you keep your infant or toddler in a good state of mind?
You can't always. That's one of the things that I tell parents a lot. Your job isn't to fix these bad emotions. Like bad, I shouldn't use that word, but like your job isn't to fix like the sad, the mad, the disappointed. It's to help the kid be able to move through them. Because we all still feel disappointment and frustration and anger and sadness. We just have more coping skills sometimes to
Hopefully.
manage those feelings, helping them move through that. And honestly, like, distraction is a really good tool. And so knowing what is going to be able to distract your child. I mean, if you think about that baby crying for the bottle, your voice saying, okay, I'm hurrying, I'm trying to go as fast as I can, I wanted the right temperature for you. That's the distraction, because now they're listening to your voice instead of thinking about the bottle. I mean, and then if you take too long, then they're back on it. And it's the same thing with toddlers, in the sense that going in from outside, that one's a really big one for little kids. They love to be outside, and it's really hard to, get them to come in and wash their hands and take their shoes off and do all that work. But like, if you can help them, like, can you carry this in for mommy? Or when we get inside, we're gonna be able to make a smiley face with our snack, or, making it fun and helping them know that there's something else to look forward to, or shifting. I went to a conference, hopefully I don't get in trouble for this, but their whole theme was, oh, shift.
Oh,
Helping them
interesting.
shift things. And I just thought it was really, really funny.
I think that's clever. Oh my gosh.
It is.
Very cool. Now I'm wondering about the other side of that coin as well. Excuse me. We're talking about like what to do to keep your infant or toddler in a good state of mind, but it feels like more of this is about how to help your child through that, like what you just said. My follow-up to that then is, where do you learn the coping skills if either you don't have them maybe, or you don't think that you have them? Like, how do parents exercise their own tools for how to teach their children coping skills and how to cope with their own situations?
Well, that's a lot.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine, but I just want to validate the fact that it's a lot. I teach parents this. I teach it every day. Going home and using it, totally a different thing. I think part of it is, the more proactive you can be as a parent, know what you're going to do when there's bad moments. If you know what you're going to do, you're going to be less stressed out. You're going to have a plan and you can put it into place. So that's kind of, I guess, my first piece of advice. You only know what you know. As a toddler, as a teen, as a parent, I think that the internet is an amazing resource. Really looking up like emotional regulation, looking up coping skills. So one of the things that I teach first from the get-go, and I make parents do it with the kid, is deep breaths, is breathing. And one of the things that I tell parents is, don't tell your kid to breathe, model it. Because even if they're not doing it, at least you're getting a little bit more oxygen to your brain. And so one of you is gonna, be thinking a little bit more clearly. And I think the other big one to start with, and it's been a buzzword for a while, is the mindfulness. Where I start teaching that is focusing on the five senses. What's your body touching? What, what can you see? What noises do you hear? Smell and taste are a little bit harder, but like, they're like, when I get upset, I go to the kitchen and I smell the oregano because it makes me think of my nanny. Being able to be mindful of, like, having your kid on the, in the park, stop and smell a flower, or find three yellow things. Those are types of things that you guys can do to practice that mindfulness.
Very, very cool. I love that. We have we have a comment. My kids always had a hard time with transitions, coming, going, changing clothes. That's from Rachel. Thank you, Rachel.
Transitions are hard. It's that oh shift again. You're
So,
moving from one thing to another.
so what makes transitions hard?
All kinds of different things. Not wanting to stop, not knowing what is coming next. So giving transition warnings. Some kids need like a 5-minute transition warning, and then a 3-minute transition warning, and then a 1-minute transition warning, and then they still have a hard time and they want to like finish up a certain way. I have other kids that I'm like, okay, 30 seconds. We got 30 seconds left and they're cleaning up. I mean, and so there's that temperament piece again. It really kind of depends on the kiddo. But I think advance notice, helping them know, having some sort of routine. I used to think that I was like, I don't like routine. I like to be spontaneous. No, I like my routine. And kids, and that helps kids because they know what's coming next. They know what to expect. And so there's not as much anticipation of not knowing. Making it fun, having them help. Kids love to help until they don't. I mean, really, like, if you think it's true. Like, they'll help you fold the laundry, but they don't want to clean up their toys because they feel like, they feel a sense of belonging when they get to help. Whereas like cleaning up toys is just something that it's a chore. It's something that you have to do. Having them help carry something in, having them know what comes next, making it fun. So I'm a big fan of walking like animals because it's a really easy thing. And my favorite one is the penguin, because the penguin, can they see me? Like, you have to have your arms off to the side and you're waddling, you have to do small steps. So it keeps their hands to their side and it slows them down a little bit. So
Oh, lovely.
that's my favorite one. Don't overuse it though. Use it when you need it. If we can turn it into a game, I'm going to race you here. Or I would practice red light, green light in the middle of transitions or going places. Don't do it in the parking lot, do it on the sidewalk. But those types of things of making life fun.
Very, very cool. Alicia says, I have to do the multiple transition warnings.
A lot of people do. It's great that you know how long it's gonna, that you need to plan and have more time. I think the other thing that we do as parents is, if you say it's time to go and they're ready to go, you need to go. Because there was this one kiddo with their mom, and it took me a couple of weeks to figure it out. Like, we would say, okay, it's time to clean up, and she would clean up and she would hang on the door, and mom would bring up something else, and she always left in a tantrum because she was already ready to go. Mom had said, it's time to go. And then 10 minutes later, we're leaving. And so there's that being mindful of what we're doing and what we're telling the kid and following through on it.
That reminded me a lot of my mom. Uh, but I think that it's really great, the idea of grounding, like for ourselves as well as for our kids, because gosh, that seems like a lot.
Well, and I can tell you the worst days that I had with my son were the days that I came home from work exhausted and tired and not wanting to deal with anything. And he would just know that I was cranky and dig his heels into everything. I also had to really reframe what my self-care is. You know, it's not a day at the spa anymore. It's like washing my hands in my bathroom with the door closed and nice smelly soap. That can be self-care. I need to think about what I can do in a 3 to 5 minute period versus what I can do for in a whole day.
It makes total sense.
Because then you can come home and you can take that 5 minutes after work.
Is there anything, yeah, anything that you want to leave us all with?
That I think of like that attunement, the like responsiveness of being able to kind of respond to what your kiddo's needing, nurturing, just finding those things to do with your kiddo, having that consistency and predictability and follow through with things. I think those are kind of like my buzz points. And play, make things fun. Kids learn so much through play, and we can learn from them by just following their lead and playing, and it's going to build that warmth, and it's going to get you past that tantrum that just happened 5 minutes ago.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you or try to make an appointment, how do they go about doing that? Where do they get more information for you?
That is a good question. So I think probably the best thing is to call our main line options for Southern Oregon. It is 541 476 2373. It would be a referral. And anybody can do a referral. It doesn't need to come from a doctor or a different provider. A parent can do it. Because the kiddos are so small and I'm so busy, we typically schedule those appointments. Although like for adults and older kids, it's open access. It's like a walk-in. And then I would just kind of, be asking about the concerns. Almost always it's some sort of family therapy that we're doing because I'm not with the kiddo long enough to be able to make those changes. The parent needs to know how to help manage those big feelings for those kids.
Makes total sense. Well, very much appreciate your time. And once again, thank you to our viewers. Thank you to Rachel and Alicia for commenting and engaging with us. It was very, very great. I hope that everybody has a great day.